Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Q News Patriot channel, audio chat number 4 today. We have a wonderful guest here with us this afternoon, Miss Lana Asanin. She is a commentator, a spokesperson for the Tesla Science Board of Directors. She's a European American and came here several years back and has a really very good balance of understanding of things that are going on sort of at the surface level here geopolitically with the transition between the old way of life and the new way of life, and understanding how things really flow together with that free thinking model. Again, I'm your host. This is SG Anon. Really glad to have you back this afternoon, and we're going to go ahead and get right to it. I know a lot of you all are excited to hear from Miss Asanin. So without further ado, Miss Lana, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
So I guess the first thing that I wanted to get into, and we were talking just a moment ago off air, if we could start maybe giving everyone just a little bit of an idea of your background and how you sort of came into this, we'll just call it the Great Awakening around the world, with this idea that we should think outside of the constructs that we were given as we were, growing up when we were kids, and like you said, the globalists and how they created these constructs for us. Could you delve a little bit into that and sort of how that compelled you into the positions that you're in now and the opinions that you have now?
Well, I was, I don't know, for a lot of people out there who don't know that, but I was born and raised in Germany by Serbian descent. So I grew up with three languages that I speak perfectly, fluently. And I also have two other languages, which is French and Spanish. I'm not as fluent in it, but I can understand it. And that's kind of like a common thing when you grow up in Europe, which unfortunately we don't have here in the United States. And I think it should change because it's a good thing when you grow up with a lot of languages. So, however, I grew up there and I started my career. My background is actually in entertainment. When I was very young, like 15, 16, I was in school, but I was also working, making money because I wanted to be independent. I didn't want to rely on my parents and I wanted to make my own money. So I was working constantly. And then I started in the modeling industry, and which was quite interesting because I got to travel all over Europe and got to meet a lot of interesting people and amazing photographers. And yeah, it was beautiful. And when you're young, it's fun. It's a fun world. And so after that, I got into the beauty competition and beauty pageants. So I was first runner up for Miss Frankfurt, and then first runner up for Miss Germany, and then I was Miss Montenegro. So that's another thing that happened.
Oh my.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, all this experience, and it's great. And then, since after I was traveling all over and finished school, I decided in a very young age, I said, like, you know what, I want to, see the world. I actually never really wanted to be in Germany, believe it or not, even though it's a beautiful country. But I was always this outsider. I felt like, I need to see the world. I need to, and my parents couldn't understand it in the beginning. And, they're Eastern European and they're just, I grew up differently, very strict.
Right.
So they didn't want me to really travel because they wanted me to be around them. But I was always like, nah, I'm a rebel. I'm just going to go see the world. I was very brave, and all my, friends in school are like, "I can't believe you're going on your own." And so, yeah, I don't know, and and I think I have that from my dad because he's a pretty tough guy who served the army, so I'm very proud of him. He's my hero, and so yeah, so I went off into the world and I went to Asia and I was modeling in Asia. I was, in Bangkok, in Thailand, and I was in Hong Kong, and I went to South Korea. I went to Singapore, and then I went to what is it called? Philippines. Yeah. And so, yeah, I was like all over it. And, in pretty much every country in Asia, I was working a lot. I was on every commercial, was on every magazine. I did it all.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah, it was it's a little bit of a different concept in Asia is more like, what, you new face, fresh face, everybody wants to have you. So you're like all over, plastered all over. So you're like the sensation of, of that country for the, like for 4 months, pretty much straight 4 months. And then after that, they kind of get sick and tired of you, and then you kind of move on. So that's pretty much it. But yeah, and then when I was in the Philippines, I from my, being a model and being on all magazines and commercials, I actually I got into entertainment. I got discovered. And it was pretty interesting because I was working with this director, commercial director, and he invited me to this party of some celebrities. And I went, and I had this lady who approached me, and she's like, "Hey, would you like to be on TV?" I'm like, "Well, I don't really speak the language, but I'm game for everything." And she's like, "Well, you don't need to. It's fine. We got to make it happen." I was like, "Okay." So I auditioned for this, very, very famous show that is still on TV. And I think it's like in Guinness Book of Records. I don't even know if they still have Guinness Book of Records, but, they it's like the longest running TV show in history, pretty much. So,
Really?
yeah, it's pretty cool. And they still have it on. It's amazing. Um, but I didn't start with them, so it's it's not
Certainly.
like they've been around. But so yeah, so I auditioned in front of like 15 people, and they made me like say something in Filipino and or Tagalog. That's what you call. And I was just reading, and they were laughing. And I felt a little embarrassed. I'm like, I don't know if are they laughing at me or not. But they're like, "No, that's cute. You're trying to learn. This is great." So I got a gig, and I got a contract the next day, 3 years right away signed as a co-host. And, from there on, that was it. My career was just like up there. And
Wow.
yeah, and like I was the first foreign girl that actually made the cover of this amazing magazine, such as almost like Vogue magazine, who had like her name on it. Usually they had like all these girls models, but nobody ever had their name featured. So I was the first girl to break it, to have my name featured on the magazine. So I was very proud of that.
Absolutely. That is
And
very
then
cool.
yeah, it's pretty cool. And then I also, they have this beautiful little island. It's called Boracay. And so I was like the mermaid of Boracay, and I was on the first coffee table book as well. I was also on the first book, like another coffee table book, but it was by a famous photographer, and he had all the celebrities. So I did all of that. I mean, it was amazing, like when I look back and I'm thinking, oh my God, I can't believe I did all that. And yeah, so I pretty much, that was my background. So I went there, I was on the TV show, and then it was just like one thing after another. I was on a comedy sitcom for about 3 years, and then I was hosting Entertainment. I was hosting a dance show. It's kind of like Dancing with the Stars, where I had to dance, I hosted, I interviewed, I did it all. And all of that, you have to imagine, I did not have any teleprompter, so it was all like pretty much memorizing. So you had to be quick on your feet. And I mean, I was constantly working. I had no private life whatsoever. I was married to my job. All I did is work, 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 and that's it.
Oh my.
but but I enjoyed it. I would never trade it for anything. I loved it. I loved my job, but and I was really good at it because I trained myself. Nobody was telling me anything. All I did is like I recorded everything I did. The night I came home, I was going over everything because I'm such a, like I have OCD and I'm a perfectionist. And so I had to look at everything. That's what actually Michael Jackson did too. That's why he was so good. Because, the only way you can perfect yourself is to basically, like study yourself. So you go over your, like all your things, like how do you behave? How do you talk? How do you dress? All that stuff. It's so important, all the details. And that's how I perfected my craft, and I was really good. And yeah, it was an amazing time I had in the Philippines. I love Filipino people, wonderful people, beautiful people, and miss them very much. I mean, I still have a lot of following and avid followers. And yeah, and I mean, it's actually sad, I don't know, like, but I can talk about it. I used to have a Facebook page with almost 1 million followers, and that's, unfortunately, it got hacked and got taken down. So
Wow.
yeah,
No kidding.
and the reason why, it was because I believe, truly believe, I started getting political. So now, from moving, like, moving away from Asia, which I all did. I was famous there and all that, and then I figured, I said, you know what, I want to try Hollywood. Let's see how it goes. And that's why, like, I went from Asia, went all the way to Los Angeles and worked there. And then, over there I did Entourage. Everybody knows Entourage. I did The Mentalist. I was on Curb Your Enthusiasm too. I was in a little shows, but I wasn't like a big star. I was just,
Right.
acting there. But I was on Deal or No Deal. A lot of people know that. So that was a lot of fun. So if people watch Deal or No Deal, everybody knows it's like with all this, like, women from all over the world and with the cases.
Right.
So I did that. So that was a famous show. And yeah, so I ventured pretty much from LA to New York. And I did, some stuff here as well, acting, movie. I did a movie that was a short film, and we won in the film festival in Madrid for best short film. So that was very nice. So we won a couple trophies. and yeah, so then going back, like, when everything happened pretty much in 2020, when we got locked up, right?
Right.
And we got locked up like animals.
An apt
And
description.
pretty much, so 2020, I remember, like, I haven't seen my parents for about a year and a half, and I usually go visit my family every year. So I decided, I was like, you know what, I'm going to book my flight for 2020, March 2020. So I was super excited because I miss my family so much. I'm a family person, and I'm very close to my family too. And so then, like, people started talking about this corona thing in 2020, I believe January. Oh, no, actually, it was already starting in 2019, right? Like somewhere in November, December.
Right. Towards the end, yes.
Right. But then they started, like, in January 2020. And it was funny because 2020 came along, and I was like, I went to this Chinese restaurant. I'm not blaming anything, whatever, but I do remember 5 days later, I got sick. And I got sick, not like a different kind of sick. It wasn't like the normal, having a flu. It was like a different kind of flu. I was sick for 3 weeks.
Oh
I don't
my.
know. Yeah, and I had all these symptoms that I didn't know what it was. I mean, listen, I survived. I did all the home remedies. I don't take pills. I don't believe in that. So I was just like, hey, I prayed. I said, hey, if I make it, I make it. If not, I guess that's it.
Right.
So, but I did. And then, that's when they started with this whole corona thing, I was like, okay. And they started, they shut the whole world. And I was so sad. I cried because I couldn't see my family because they shut the borders, everything. And then I figured, I said, okay, something isn't right. I've never, can you imagine, in my whole life, I've never experienced that I would ever, be on this planet where like pretty much the whole world is shutting down. There was something not right. I
Right.
was, it was like something wasn't right. I
It was
always
too
listen to
coordinated.
right. And I listen to my gut feeling because as a woman, we have this really good gut feelings, so intuition. And we always should listen to that because it's always right, 100%. And I felt it. I said, there's something not right. So that's when I started digging in. I started digging in. I started listening to podcasts, people, because everybody was locked up. Everybody was going online. I was like, who are these people? I don't even know. But I'm like, let me listen to it. So I was like news. My news channel was on 24/7, and I'm sure not only me. I'm sure everybody was on, on news every day because they wanted to find out what was going on. So I was on the news 24/7, listening to news. I was on podcasts. I was researching. I was doing this. People sending you stuff. This whole thing was flooding all over the social media. And I realized, I said, okay, this whole thing doesn't make sense. Nothing makes sense at all. And then when I had my page, when I still had my page, my big page with almost 1 million followers, I started getting a little more political.
Right.
I was still being careful, but I was getting political. But it was always like a satire kind of page, and I was always making fun and mocking people. But you know how the radical left is. They just they don't like that kind of stuff. They don't like to. They're very sensitive. That's what I'm saying. You
Yeah,
got to be careful with everything you say, whatever you post. I mean, now it's completely different. But I'm talking back 3 years ago. It was much harder. So yeah, I mean, I just I research, and I realized that whatever is going on is not normal. And then I said, okay, wait, they're coming out with this whole thing, and they talking about like, wow, it's like so deadly and it's airborne, and I'm thinking, wait, what? Wait a second, how is it airborne? I mean, if you have all the homeless people outside, and how come they're still alive? You know what I mean? So how is that airborne? So that's not right, right? And then like, I mean, I was just and then I always tell people, I said, listen, you see these homeless people, they're outside, they have a lot of diseases. I mean, they do, unfortunately, because they don't wash themselves, but they're still alive. And
right.
I said, you talking about this thing that is coming out as like it's gonna, it's gonna make us like die, or like how? It doesn't even make sense. And then I said, like, what about the dollar bill? We've been exchanging dollar bills for so many years. You don't even know where this dollar bill is coming from?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I always make fun, and I mean, I say like, maybe it comes, you don't know, maybe it's coming from a hooker's plate, like, but So it's like, what are you doing, guys? It's like, you are afraid of what? It's like you don't, I didn't wash my hands. I go like, to New York. I travel by, I take the subway, whatever, and you're holding your hand by the pole thing. And I never think of like washing my hands. I don't think about that. But we're okay. We survived. And so now something, back 3 years ago, came out of nowhere, and now we have to, be afraid of it. I just, it was just
It
crazy.
didn't sit right.
No, it was crazy. But listen, I'm glad it's over. And I guess nobody's talking about it anymore. But you know what? I always like to remind people in my post. I said, like, don't forget what happened. Never
Right.
forget what happened. Never forget what they did to us. Never. I said, don't. Because people like, people are easy to forget things. I noticed that. You can say something 3 years ago and they don't remember that anymore. I mean, uh,
Absolutely.
I see that honestly with my pictures. I could post a picture now that was like 5 years ago, and they were like, oh my God, that's a nice picture. I'm like, okay, well, that's not new. But they don't know because they don't remember. People just forget. But I just feel like people shouldn't forget that, because it was a very, very hard time for everybody.
Is
And
it a
I
fair
don't.
statement?
I'm
Oh, I'm
sorry.
sorry. Go ahead.
No, I said for me, I don't. Things like that, I don't forget, because it was torture for a lot of people.
Right.
That's what I believe. And a lot of people, we went through a very, very hard time. Being locked up, not being able to go outside. I mean, for some people, it depends on where they live. I live in an area where I could walk outside, but my parents couldn't go out. They're older, and they were not allowed to go out for like 2 months. That's
My.
that's hard. You know what I mean? That's hard. That broke my heart back then. I was like, I cannot believe they're doing that. That's why I will never forget that ever. Because I'm protective over my family, my friends, and I will never forget what they did ever. And that's why I'm fighting this fight, until the end.
Absolutely. And uh, I love the spirit, because when I get to connect with patriots like yourself, from regardless of wherever they're at, we're all we the people, right? And it was really us versus them. They really catalyzed the game board and turned it into that dynamic. And you're right. I don't think that we sometimes remember that enough, that it is a very personal battle that we're all still going through to some extent, right? We look at this fraudulent administration here in the United States. We look at elections being manipulated around the world, including in Europe, and in other areas. And so the fight's not over, right? But we have to keep our eyes on how we really got here. And so is it a fair statement to say that, when the pandemic happened, that this was really sort of your personal aha moment? This was where you went, no, wait a minute, there's something much, much larger here, that's a coordinated assault, really, on what's going on with the people in the world. It's not really about health. It doesn't make sense to be about health. The things that would have normally been, measures that would have normally been taken if it were about health, they weren't taken. Is that a fair statement?
Oh yeah, I mean, I never, believe that this was, I mean, like you said, pandemic, I call it scamdemic, whatever you want to call it, but um yeah, I mean, to me it wasn't about health. No, it wasn't about that, because obviously I noticed that the first, like I told you before, I when I'm going back, like when I talk about how deadly it was and all that, and I was like, it's not. This is all about control. This is all about control. This is all about, the Great Reset. What they're talking about, New World Order. That's what it's all about. That's why they shut the whole world. And now, when you go back and you look at all these leaders from other countries, they're all involved in it. They're all in cahoots with each other. And I think that there is a big agenda that they have planned for many, many years. And I think what happened, like everybody was hoping that Hillary wins, because the 16-year plan that they had, she was supposed to fulfill the whole thing. But obviously, she didn't win. So, and then Trump came in, and that was a big problem.
Right.
So now we have, Biden, and who is actually not really, in the office. He probably doesn't even know where he is, but I mean,
You may not know who he is.
yeah, I honestly don't even think that's him. But then again, like I said, that's just my opinion. But
Absolutely.
I think the guy who's pulling the strings is actually Obama, and it's his third term. And the reason why I say that is because there's a video out, and I'm sure everybody has seen that video, where he even said, he was interviewed about, like, if he wanted to run again or something like that. And he said if he wouldn't do that, but he would like to be in the basement and, and be the voice for someone outside. He pretty much exposed it. Nobody was paying attention at that time what that means. But now when you go back, you're like, wait a second, you put one and one together. It's like, okay, that makes sense. So I strongly believe it's Obama. It's his third term, and he's using Biden. He's just a puppet. And again, we don't even know if it's him or not him. I mean, there's a lot of things out there, such as videos, pictures, and I don't know. I just feel like it's not him. And again, I see photos of him a few years ago. He looks like a complete different person. And
Right.
as we know, every president or someone who is, a powerful person, they always have buddy doubles. Everybody does that, like, because
Right.
sometimes you have to be in different places at the same time. You can't do that. So they have buddy doubles. They have masks. Listen, I come from Hollywood. I've seen it. Everybody has seen, movies from before and what can happen. And so it's easy to make something, it's not.
Right.
Yeah, I can transform myself into somebody else. It's not a big deal. So it's all out there. That's what I'm saying. So people need to pay attention to that. It's not just a movie. I always tell people, I say, watch movies, but pay attention to it now. And so anything is possible. But yeah, so I think it's definitely, there's an agenda, and we are living in very, very dangerous times. Um, but I do believe, if we continue the fight, we cannot give up, because if we give up, then that means we're weak, and that's what they want, and then they won. So we need to stick together as patriots. And I always say that on social media. I said, don't fight another patriot. It's like nonsense. That's exactly what they want. We need to stand together and help each other. You know what I mean? In whatever way it is. So, and we as people, we are powerful, and people don't
Absolutely.
realize it. The government is not power, and it's not about the government. The government's supposed to work for us, not the other way around. And I don't know why a lot of people that I know, a lot of my friends, I have friends, I have also like, Democrat friends. I mean, everybody has, right? As long as we don't talk politics is fine. But I just listen to them sometimes. I'm like, oh my God, I can't. I don't know. Their thinking is just completely off.
Brainwashing is real.
Oh, it's completely off. I was just like, oh gosh.
Good Lord. Well,
Yeah.
so then that's interesting because that leads me actually into where I was going to go here in a second. You were talking just a moment ago with, you've been in Hollywood, you've been in the entertainment world, you've seen a lot of how this works, you've seen a lot of what, is confined to a movie set can be put on a macro level at a much larger level. Um, so let's roll back to that just a little bit. Off air, just a few moments before we started the broadcast, you had mentioned talking about intuition, listening to your gut and things like that, and how there were some things that were going on when you arrived in the Hollywood scene, that arena where it was very dark and things seemed very off-putting in some regards, and maybe you can't put your finger right on it, but that something's wrong. Could you delve a little bit into what that was like and how maybe that is reminiscent of now?
Yeah, I mean, when I was working in Hollywood and, going back to what you and I talked, off camera, I remember when I entered Hollywood and I was with, my agent told me, he said, like, listen, be careful not to get sucked into this whole like bubble thing. And, it can be very dangerous. And I was like, oh, why would it be dangerous? I have no problem. I said, listen, I said, every girl who comes to Hollywood, they want to become famous. They all want to be an actress, model, whatsoever. And I said, but just be careful. It's a very dark world out there. And I didn't realize that. So, but I got sucked into it too. Of course, everybody does. It doesn't matter how strong you are. It's just that I feel like it's the spirit over there, to be honest. It's that evil spirit that just drags you in. You know what I mean? So it doesn't
Right.
matter how strong you are, but it can break you. It can really break you. So and I was around people, and then you have all these like Hollywood parties and all that. Everybody's so superficial. I mean, you have a lot of beautiful women there, and men and all this, because that's the mecca of of beauty. Like, if you want to go and see the most beautiful people, that's what you do. You go to Hollywood because everybody's beautiful there. Every waiter or waitress is an actress or a model, and so it's perfect. I mean, it's great. But however, that doesn't mean that everybody's good. And
Right.
that also doesn't mean that everybody's very smart, because a lot of these women out there, they're beautiful, but they don't have much up there, and also not up here.
Right. Right.
And
Absolutely.
yeah, so I mean, I would go to these Hollywood parties, and it was just crazy. I remember this one incident. It was bad. I went to this party with some girls, models, and it was like, oh, it was the after party of the Grammys. And so there's always, everybody has like parties at, private houses, mansions, because that's what LA is about. They don't have clubs like you have. I mean, they have clubs, but what I'm saying, they're not open until wee hours in the morning, like you have in New York, where they open until 5, 6 o'clock, right? So over there, they shut down everything by 1 a.m. And then what they do is like, it's like everybody goes to different mansions and has fun there. That's like a Hollywood thing. And I remember going to this party, and I didn't really know anybody. And then I was like, I was getting tired. I said, I want to go home, and I was like, I don't know how to get home. So I figure I said, I asked this girl who was with me. I said, like, do you know anybody who I can go home with? Because I don't know. And she's like, oh yeah, I know this friend. So I pretty much jumped into some car. I don't even know, but I was risking my life. But I was like, I need to go home, because I was like up there. There was no Uber, there was no reception. You know what I mean? It was scary, but it was like a big mansion with like thousands of people. So I just went, and it was like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and I went to this gas station, and they dropped me off at the gas station. And instead of being with me, and being a good friend, she took off with these people, and I don't know when. And I was by myself
Oh
at
my
the gas
goodness.
station at 3 o'clock in the morning. So I had to call my friend. I was so scared, because LA is a little like scary at night. I was like, okay, can you pick me up? I said, what are you doing there? I said, well, I don't know. They just dropped me off here, and then I don't have anywhere to go. I was like, what
Oh
do I
my
do?
goodness.
And so my friend picked me up. He was like, Lana. I said, I can't believe it. I said, like, yeah. I said, why are you having friends like that? I said, well, they're not. I mean, I figured they're my friends. I didn't know, but that's how Hollywood is. You cannot in Hollywood. I met some really good people in LA. Don't get me wrong, but if you are surrounding yourself with people in Hollywood, I said you cannot trust anybody. Nobody, because these people are very superficial, and they have no soul. They're very dark, and all they want to do is, if you are somebody, they want to be around you. So they don't care about how good of a person you are, but it's more about, hey, what can you do for me? So that's why when you're in LA, and people ask, like, normally when you meet someone, you're like, hey, where you from, your background, right? You don't necessarily ask someone like right away, what do you do? That's just like rude to me. But
Right.
that's how LA is. The first question, they don't ask you where you're from, all this. No, they're like, what do you do? Okay. So if you don't do something that would benefit them, they just drop you, and they don't care. So all they care about, how do I get to fame? How do I get to money and all that stuff? That's how LA is. That's how bad these people are.
Absolutely. And so,
Yeah.
and you're describing this to me, and I just can't get it out of my head, the things that you're saying. And I'm seeing it in the mainstream media. I'm seeing these sorts of attitudes, these sort of dispositions, the disregard for, that human connection, the disregard for compassion, the disregard really for truth, right? Coming through in all areas of our society right now. It's as though, these individuals were sort of given the limelight nationally. They were, or even around the world, right? Um, it's an incredible parallel. You're telling me these stories, and it's amazing to think about, like, the fact checkers, right? Everybody loves the fact checkers because there's nothing factual about it, right? Or with the vaccine misinformation and all of this, and
You mean
these
like
buzzwords.
the opinion checkers, like opinion, because that's exactly what they are. You know who they are really. I mean, it's basically, like Facebook, and what they did is like they're paying, like peanuts money. It's really peanuts money to all these like poor people around the world, whether it's from India, Pakistan, Asia, whatever. And imagine like someone who's younger that, at home, they're like, oh, I'm getting paid, from American dollars or whatever, and they're paying me. So that's what they do. They have no clue of anything. They have no clue of, history whatsoever. They're just giving directions. They're like, okay, you know what? I pay you this amount of money, and this is what you do. You fact check them. That's exactly what it is. These people have no clue. They have no clue what's going on. That's why, like when they fact check certain things, it's like, what do you, this is like the truth. But they're, back then, I don't know how it is now. I think it has gotten a little bit better, not as good, but it's gotten a little bit better than 2020. But that's exactly who they are. They're being paid by Facebook. And it's like, we wouldn't work for that money because it's nothing. You know what I mean? They're probably getting $5, $10. You know what I mean? So
Oh my goodness.
yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, like I said, I'm just speculating, but
But it
that's
but
what
that
it.
would
But
make
I
a
do
lot of
know,
sense
yeah, but
because
I do know these people are working from all around the world, because when you go, okay, there's a system that they have when you go on like your Facebook, and there's like blocking people. So when you go on blocking and you put in fact checker, and then you see all these people, it's mostly like India, Pakistani, Asia, and everything. And I was like, where the hell are these people coming from? And those are all the fact checkers. So that's what I'm saying. It's like, I know they're getting paid. They're all over the world, and that's what they do. They're paying them, just like you have all these like call centers, these call centers you pick up, and you're like, okay, calling Wells Fargo, and then you're talking to someone in Asia, they don't even speak English, and then you get
right.
irritated. It's like, that's that's exactly what it is. I mean, they don't hire Americans.
Absolutely. Well, and it wouldn't serve their agenda, right? We just discussed that agenda earlier too, and that's really what I think is getting on full display. You know, when we were talking about the importance of free thinking, you know, and lining out our broadcast today, that's so critical. That's such a massive component of what is really, I think, happening around the world right now. It's almost like a nice byproduct of the insanity that is on such full display, is that people are stepping back and they're going, wait a minute, that makes absolutely no sense in any conceivable realistic world. So what is the alternative? What is the other information? What's the other side of that coin? And I think that's a really, really important component of this. You know, you being very well traveled, right, and educated very well and things like that. I think there's a different perspective that's present there, and it's a valuable perspective, because me being, you know, sort of a homegrown American, right, I try to consider myself fairly well educated. I've got a college degree, not that that matters very much, but it's really the ability to intuit things and discern things and look between the lines and find that information for ourselves, you know. And as we do that, we rediscover our own power, we rediscover our own innate intelligence, which is such an important component, I think, of the human being just overall. And it's really kind of amazing to watch how this is all sort of tying together, even with the darkness that everyone is sort of facing, you know, and dealing with over these last few years. If I can, I'd like to actually pivot off of that and kind of move towards, your work with the Tesla Science Foundation and how you got into all of that, because I think that that's a good segue. We're talking about going from the indoctrinational model, going from the traditional model, the globalist model, the lie that was given to us for many, many decades, you know, and Tesla is one of the most revolutionary figures, I believe, over the last 300 years. The quintessential example of an out-of-the-box thinker, the quintessential example of a massive threat against the globalist hegemony of power. So if you could, and I think you might be the most well qualified to opine on this a little bit, you know, tell us a little bit about Tesla. Tell us about some of the things from the Tesla Science Foundation that, you know, you're a part of. How'd you get into it? What's passionate about it? Why is it so important to you?
Well, I got into it back in 2017, and it was through common friends who are also Serbian, because, like I said, my parents are Serbian. So, and Nikola Tesla was Serbian. A lot of people don't know that. He was, and so they were looking for a spokesperson who could represent it pretty well out here in America. And so they found me on social media. And so I did this event. My first event was, it was a yearly event that we do. It's at the New Yorker Hotel. That's where Nikola Tesla lived and died, pretty much. And I actually slept in the same room. It was pretty interesting
Oh
because
my.
yeah, it's interesting because all his pictures are all over. And I remember the first time I was in his room, because they put me up in the room, and it was such a tiny room, and I don't even know how this man was living there. I mean, he was such a genius, but I guess he was comfortable living in that little box, So it was not a big place, but his pictures all over. And I remember the first night sleeping there, I was like, oh my god, he's staring at me. It was like weird. I was like, why is he staring at me? Yeah, it just felt like really he was connecting to you, and I was like, okay, that's kind of strange. But yeah, so we basically, I do the whole program. It's from morning till night, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And we have people from all over the world to come, scientists and people who do movies or write books, or in fact, I actually have a book. I have to show this one. That's what I got from so this name, Mark Seifert. He wrote this book. It's a very, very good book if you guys
Oh
want to
my.
read it. Yeah, it's an awesome book. It's a little thick, but I mean, it's
Oh, I
way
bet
too.
that's jam packed with fantastic information.
Oh, this is, yeah, and he is such an amazing writer. I mean, I met Mark, and wonderful, wonderful person. I mean, he's so dedicated to Nikola Tesla, and a great book. I haven't finished it yet, but definitely there's a lot of information. So I've suggest you guys read that. But yeah, so what we do basically, we have all these people coming from all over, and then they come and have a presentation. So I introduce them, I talk a little bit about their background, because I feel it's also important to introduce the people that are coming on on stage. Like, who are they? Because it's interesting. I mean, of course, the whole event is about Nikola Tesla, but it's important that we acknowledge the person who did such an amazing work for Nikola Tesla, who they are. So that's what I do. I do it myself. I go through the bio, check and everything. So nobody's helping me. I do all that by myself. So and and also it's good for me because I get to know a little bit about the history. So in case I mess up, I can ad lib, you know what I mean? And and so these people come, and what basically what we're trying to do is, like, we're trying to educate the youth, also, well, not just the youth but also Americans out here, to like, who Nikola Tesla was. He was such a genius. I mean, if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have energy, and unfortunately, he's not amongst us anymore. But if he was amongst us, we would have free energy, because that's what he was all about. He was a people's person. He cared about people. He did not care about the money, because he died poor. So, but it was all about that. And that's why, he's such an inspiration, especially in this dark world we're living in. And then you had Edison. Everybody's like, yeah, Edison was the great guy. I said, no, he wasn't the great guy. He was a globalist. So he was working with Nikola Tesla, but he took all his ideas and made money. That's the reason why we're paying right now. And people need to understand that. That's why we're paying for energy. If it was for Nikola Tesla, we would have free energy. We would live in a beautiful world, but we don't. You see, we're paying for everything. So that's the concept basically with this foundation. It's a nonprofit foundation, and I'm part of it. I'm excited, and there's so many wonderful people that work with that foundation, and we do amazing things. We had this couple of people that created this wonderful statue of Nikola Tesla, and there's one up in New York, and now they're trying to have them all over the United States. So just to give them, this man needs a lot of recognition. That's what I believe, and many of us as well, because he was taken for granted for many years, and nobody knows anything about it. Especially the new generation doesn't know anything. And also, like, people who grew up here, they don't even know. They feel like, okay, Nikola Tesla, and then you have Tesla, and you have Elon Musk and stuff. But Elon Musk is a business person. He's not Nikola Tesla. You know what I mean? The Tesla name, yes, comes from Nikola Tesla, with this whole car, creating the cars. But Elon Musk is the businessman,
Right.
so people need to
Absolutely.
understand they're both completely different. So when people say, oh, you're working for Elon, I said, no, I'm not working for Elon Musk. I am working for the Tesla Science Foundation, which is completely different. So
Well, so, I don't have it, and this is amazing. I just want you to know, I don't run with a script or anything like that on these programs, because I let the Holy Spirit sort of lead the conversation and where things are going. And it's really heavy as we're talking about this, to really discuss how important this really, really is, right? I mean, we're talking about the reason we had the Rockefeller cabal, the reason we had the fossil fuel mafia, the reason that we had Edison hijacking all this work and then using his buddies over at JP Morgan and in the presses to completely ruin Tesla's reputation, completely ruin his life. And
oh
a
yeah.
lot of people don't fully appreciate the sort of power dynamic and how this man was really targeted by this globalist group, even back in the day, for the research and really for his intellect, right? For his mind, being able to break down how the components of what we would call even maybe our quantum reality influences our three-dimensional world here and now, right? Being able to pull energy right out of what he called the ether, I think, if that's correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
Um,
Mhm.
but honing into this, gentleman, and understanding where this comes from and the implications. I mean, we're talking a complete revolution of how automobile transport happens, for example, a complete revolution of how logistical supply chains are operated, a complete redefinition of how we heat and power and fuel our homes, right? I mean, this is massive. This is absolutely massive, just in my opinion. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like you already said, you say he's like, everybody was against him, but there was a reason why. It's kind of like, like right now with Trump, everybody, well, not everybody, but those globalists, they don't want him to win, and but when you look back, look at him. He's not a bad person. You know what I mean? It's just, and that's why I get so angry. I mean, like when like going, like when I came here to this country, it was, a little while, but in 2016, I became a citizen, and I worked really hard for it. It's not easy. It took me a long time, and it was the first time I was able to vote, and I voted for Trump because I liked him. I thought he was super cool. I liked what he had to say, and he was not a politician. And I said, like, you know what, he's a real person now, but he's also a businessman, and I feel like America is built the foundation on business. Everybody makes business with America, and so yeah, so it was, and that's what I'm going back. It's like they going after him just like they did with Nikola Tesla, and all Nikola Tesla wanted to do good. He wanted to do good for humanity, and he was a genius. So, and like I said again, people should really like go and read that book. Go on Amazon. There's other books too. Educate yourself a little bit. I think it's important. I'm a student myself still. I still learn. I feel like it's you can study every day, learn about new things. It's never too late. You know what I mean? Never too late for anything. That's what I do. I educate myself every day, research, and it's a lot of information.
Truly,
A lot of
truly.
information. But I feel like I think that's also the reason why I'm more active on social media, because I lost a lot of my jobs as well, and obviously my biggest income was through my page, my Facebook page, and I had a lot of clients that paid me to be a spokesmodel for certain things. So that was like my really big income.
Right. Sort of a crippling hit, really.
Oh yeah, that was last year. So last year they hacked it. I don't even know how, but it happens a lot to people. There's a lot of scammers out there, but when it got hacked, it was out there for four months. My name was removed as an admin, and I tried to contact Facebook, and I said, okay, they were not helpful at all. I felt like I was talking to an AI because it was always the same message. And I just feel like I can't believe they did that. I mean, they did it also to Trump, they took it down. But so
Right.
I honestly feel it was an inside job. That's my belief because, I don't know if people are aware, but Facebook and all the other social media, aside from TruthSocial, I believe, but they're not controlled by these people. They're basically controlled by the FBI. And
Right.
they control those platforms because they know exactly. They see every message you write, and people need to be careful a little bit what you put out there. But that's what they do. They read everything, and that's why we have the censorship. And so I believe it was an inside job because I had too many followers. And when you have too many followers and you're a leader, they're afraid of that because you can speak for the people, and they don't want that. So they take people down. And they took it down, but they took down not just that, they took my livelihood down. It was my income, and it was hard since January. It was not easy. So, and I felt like, okay, you know what, I'm just going to be on social media, I'm going to voice my opinion. I don't care anymore because I feel people need to listen
Amen.
to them. And I just and I feel like I have so much knowledge from where I came from, and I traveled around. I've seen so much. I've seen the poorest of the poor, I've seen the richest of the rich. I've seen it all. And I feel with my knowledge, I always say knowledge is power. And if with my knowledge, I would like to educate people as much as I can, and give them a little hope too, and just be out there and speak for them. I always say, like, I pray every day, and I feel like, God is talking to me, is telling me, you know what, you got to do that. You got to do that. I put your voice out there because people want to hear that. And I've noticed that, with all my social media, and they're like, hey, you should do your own podcast. You should do that, which I'm actually thinking about. But I feel like my stuff is always, I don't want to be, everybody's so serious because everybody's angry. Everybody's angry right now, and I totally understand the anger. But I feel we can't be angry all the time. It's going to consume us. It's going to consume our soul. So that's why I put like some funny stuff because, coming from a comedy field too, I want to entertain people, and I want to, see a smile. I want to make them laugh because that's what they need. You need that, and to realize that, there's something better out there and that we're actually going to get there. It just takes a little time. It's a little rough right now, but we're going to get there. Together we are getting there. And
Absolutely.
so that's my mission. And I, like I always like when people share my stuff. I'm very grateful for it. Not everybody does that. I get that on social media. I see that some people have like 100,000 followers, and they're like, they don't want to share your stuff. And I'm like, okay, I'm still going to do whatever I have to do. If you want to share it, great. If you don't want to share it, doesn't matter. You know what I mean? I'm not going to beg you, or this is not who I am. Um, and yeah, so that's
That's
pretty
really
much.
cool. That's really cool. And it's funny because, you're actually leading into where I was going to go with these last couple of minutes that we've got, these last 8 to 10 minutes here.
Mhm.
Um, Regarding all of what we've talked about, from your vantage point, well traveled, experienced in the entertainment world, experienced in, the background world with the energy, understanding that there has been an agenda for a very long time, but still having a more, I wouldn't say blunted, I would just say maybe a softer approach to getting people to lighten up a little bit and appreciate, where we're at and where we're going. What do you foresee over the next couple of years? We'll say, well, maybe even more than that, maybe over the next 5 years, as we, the people around the world, patriots everywhere, sort of, like you said, standing together, locking arms, joining hands, appreciating the fact that we are all sort of, made in the image of the same God. We're all sort of sovereign in our own right, and we're reclaiming that. Where does this go from here, from your point of view?
I mean, I always say, like when you go back in times, and I mean, not too long ago when you think about it, but when social media wasn't as active, I always ask people, I said, do you appreciate that time better than what you have right now? And I think we had a little bit better life. I think social media has you know influenced a lot of people in a bad way too, especially the youth. So when everything started, Facebook, Instagram, and so. But then again, also, you got to see. I see it from both sides. It's a bad thing, but it's also a good thing. I think because of social media now, and again, with everything that is going on, I think it's good that we have it, because now we can exchange informations. That's why we have this digital soldiers. So that's what we do. We exchange informations, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, whatever. And even if they take us down, it doesn't really matter, because there's always a backup. People always back up, and they can't control us. They can't, because even if they try, it's like there's always somebody here, somebody, you know what I mean? They're changing here. Okay, I'm gonna send you this, and then you have Telegram. I mean, there's so much, so they can't shut us down. So, which is a good thing. On the other hand, I don't think it's good, because it's really ruining their youth with everything that is going on. Because you have all these people out there, such as musician, the pop culture music, or TV, that is influencing and manipulating everybody, and the young generation looks at them as heroes, and they just want to be them, but they're not good people. They're the false prophets. That's what I call them. They're not good people.
Right.
So, but I think, where I see myself, I think if we stick together like we did for the past 3 years, and I think a lot more people are waking up. And again, like I said, the more we're out there, the more we voice our opinion. And we have more podcasters right now. I feel before 2020, people were relying on actors and all that. But I think when 2020 came in and we were watching TV, I mean, news, it was all of a sudden all the newscasters were becoming popular. until now. So, but now you have, we saw what happened with Tucker Carlson. He is off the air, so we don't know what's going to happen. I think right now it's the era that we're living in my opinion, is like podcasting. People out there like you do, like, I'm going to do like other people do. And, you have Don Bongino, all these other famous people. And I think this is the new generation. And so we're gonna, if we keep doing that and more people, we're gonna wake up more people and stick together. I think we can make a change. It's not going to be easy because of everything that's happening, and this globalists, they're going to push it, and um, they're pretty powerful people. Don't get me wrong, and you know that. I mean, you're dealing with very powerful people. I mean, you're dealing with like Rothschilds, and it goes way back. And
Right.
imagine this is like a very dangerous family. So, and I mean, I'm going way back. I'm not talking about the Soros and all that because they're all puppets. You know what I mean? But
Right.
but again, it's like we're dealing with a lot of dangerous people, and then we have a corrupt system. Look at all these like three-letter agencies: FBI, CIA, CDC. The WEF, DOD, like pretty much all the three letters agency. That's what I call them. They're all corrupt. It's a complete corrupt system, and I feel either they need to be dismantled or we need to get rid of like, and when I'm talking about the whole thing, it's kind of like, there's a lot of people they don't even know. Like, let's say you work in the FBI, CIA, or, wherever, but you were like the little, the little guy. You don't really, you just follow whatever the big guy's telling you. So I'm talking about the big, big people, they're on top. These are the people that are bad. We need to get rid of them and just reform the whole thing, or completely just get rid of the whole thing. You know what I mean? I feel like IRS should be like completely gone, but that's just my opinion.
Likewise.
Yeah, they've been
Can't
like
happen fast
stealing,
enough.
right? They've been stealing money from us for decades. So this is like we have a very so that's what I mean. It's like there's so much going on. There's so many bad people we're dealing with. We're literally living in evil times. It is between good and bad. Like right now, what's good is bad, what's bad is good. I mean, it's like everything is upside down. It's crazy. It's insane. So we need to change that. But how do we change it? We're not going to change it overnight. And people say like, oh, you know what, even if Trump, he's not going to do that. I'm like, okay, I'm not saying Trump is going to do everything, but we can do it. We the people can change it. You know what I mean? But we need to do something about it, which means stick together, go out there and keep on exposing as much as we can, because they can't stop us. Whatever they try, they will. But I I told you there's too many of us, and I'm hoping for a better for a better world. But I do have a feeling it will be a better world. It's just that right now it's kind of like rough.
It's a trial by fire.
It is, but it's not easy. Just like anything else in life is not easy, but it's either you give up, then you're weak, or you keep going. And for me, I'm a warrior, and I keep going. Doesn't matter. I mean, I've went through so many hurdles in my life, and I never gave up. So this
Amen.
is my mentality that I'm just going to keep going and going, and whatever comes your way, just have to deal with it. And you got to have that
Amen.
attitude. I think, if you don't have it, and then, then we can't change anything. And
Right.
but
Absolutely.
yeah, but that's what I believe, and I hope that people continue doing that, because I honestly feel it's gonna get better. Not tomorrow, not in a week, but it will get better. So
Well, Lana, I've got to say, this has been one of the most fun conversations on air or off air, regardless, that I've had in a really long time. I really very much appreciate it. And Patriots out there, just so you're aware, this is what it's all about. It's about getting connected with individuals who have very good focalized experience in different areas of the world, who understand how the game has been played. how these people have operated, and they hit the niche that they have to, or excuse me, that they're called to hit, and it resonates profoundly, right? And so that's really what this is all about. I just got to say, I'm really honored that you spent some time with me today. I really appreciate it. Where can people find you?
Well, before I say that, I need to, okay, so I was going to tell you that you have a big fan base all over the world, but I have one friend, if I can give a shout out. She doesn't even know I'm going to do that, but I think she'd be happy because she follows you and she told me about years ago.
Oh
And
my.
yeah, so she is from the Netherlands and her name is Femke. And I don't know, I always pronounce her last name wrong, but Shuke, it doesn't matter, just Femke. She knows if I, she's going to watch and she's going to listen, she's going to know. So I want to give a shout out, wonderful human being. And she is very spiritual. And she's in the same, I think she's actually much deeper into this whole thing than me. And I'm also learning from her. We're all learning from each other pretty much, and it's a beautiful thing. So, but yeah, you can find me on obviously TruthSocial. And you can find me on Twitter as well. You can find me on Instagram and, well, Facebook. You can find me there. It's more my personal page. I'm still thinking if I should start a new page on Facebook. I'm debating if I should or not. Because again, a lot of people say like, don't do it. But you know what? People forget is like, it's not about if you don't like that certain platform, it's about, the more it's out there, the better. You know what I mean? The more information we have, the more it's actually for the good, for the great, good, great, for the
Right.
great, for the great
Absolutely.
good. So that's what I believe in. You got to think more business wise, not like be too emotional, so don't think like it's, oh, yeah, I don't like that platform. Think business, think, hey, you know what? The more you're out there, the more you expose it, it's a good thing, so we need to be out on everything. But yeah, I would love for people to follow. And again, I'm thinking, debating to do something on my own as well, but it will be a little different than what people see from others. I mean, I love your platform and you have so much intel. It's very interesting. I'm going to, my stuff is going to be probably a little bit different too, more like funny stuff too, because again, I want to bring a little happiness into people's life.
Amen.
They need a
Which,
little bit happiness. They need to laugh a little bit because again, we need that. It's good. It's good medicine for the soul. And yeah, I would appreciate it if they give me a follow and share my stuff. The more you share, it's better. I guess that's how it works in the media, right? In the social media, you have to share. If you don't share, nobody knows anything.
couldn't have said it better myself. Well spoken. I
Yeah.
really appreciate it. And I just want to double check here and make sure that I've got this correct. We're talking about making sure that people can find We the People everywhere. So your TruthSocial handle is at Lana Asanin. Is that correct?
Yeah. It's actually Asanin. Yeah.
Asanin.
But it's okay. Don't worry about it. So I mean,
Well,
I
it's
actually,
important to
gave
pronounce that
myself.
correctly.
Yeah, I gave myself a new name. I call Lana the Assassin, so that's good. That's a better name. That's, I used to, people used to call me that before. I'm like, I like that. And so but yeah, it's Asanin and yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for your time, Patriots. I hope you've really enjoyed the conversation that we've had here today. This is really what the audio chat series was about. It wasn't so much about um, bringing in all of the doom and gloom, right? It's more about bringing in the experts in some regards and connecting us with, other We the People from all around the world, because we really do win this together and we have to sort of lock those arms. Not all of us are going to agree on the same things. Not all of us are going to have the exact same opinions about the exact same item in the exact same time. And that's okay, right? As a matter of fact, that's desirable, because what the globalists have always wanted is just little automatons, right? And we can look at the transhuman agenda with the Klaus Schwabs and the WEF for all of that. So to take these types of conversations and just connect with We the People around the world, that's really what this whole audio chat series was about. And Ms. Asanin, I'm very pleased that you came on today, and I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Oh, absolutely. I would love to do that again. Thank you so much for having me. And God bless you. God bless your wife too. And, speedy recovery. I hope you're feeling better because I know you went through a little rocky.
It's been a journey. We are recovering. It's been a journey.
Yeah, you're a trooper, you're a warrior, and you know what? God is with you. So just keep going. And thank you for having me.
Well, that'll do it. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us today. This is SG Anon. We'll be back with you again soon. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.